Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to the History of Victory. This is going to be a panel discussion. This event is hosted by Forsyth Library as a part of Victory Tiger's 25th birthday celebrations this month. Technically, his birthday, I would say, is actually in April, but for his 10th birthday, they celebrated at a birthday game, or at a basketball game in February, just because when there's a coliseum filled with people, that makes more of a birthday party. And that is what we are repeating again this year for his 25th birthday celebration at the game on Saturday, on February 22nd, at both the women's and the men's game. The women's game starts at 2, the men's game starts at 4, and there'll be birthday activities the hour before each game and a halftime celebration for him at that basketball game too, along with some other events that will also take place. There's a few more happening next week too, so be sure to watch for other Victory Tiger birthday celebrations on campus. But today our goal is to learn a little bit about the origin story of Victory Tiger. Here at Fort Hays State University, he's our beloved mascot. He's on t-shirts and water bottles and pins, and everywhere you look, we see Victory Tiger. And we have our panelists here today to provide some insight into that origin story and also where Victor might be headed in the future too. But we have been Tigers here at Fort Hays State University since 1914, when President William Alexander Lewis adopted the tiger mascot and the black and gold colors. The folklore legend is that actually on a February 12th basketball game versus McPherson College was the first unveiling of a tiger mascot on the athletic jerseys. They came out with a hungry-looking tiger sewn on their old gold jerseys, and from there you see in the Reveille yearbooks starting in 1915 that instead of just reporting scores as normal versus the opponent, which we were the normal school at the time, in the 1915 Reveille you start seeing athletic events and scores reported as the Tigers versus opponents. So after that 1914, the Tigers began being adopted on campus, mainly in the athletic component at first, with athletic yells and cheers being documented at that time too. And all of that we see with the documentation in the university archives at Forsyth Library. But from 1914 on, various tigers were used. So across the decades, there were a lot of different tigers being used. And we'll hear from some panelists about the pros and cons of that, and also the complications of what tiger was our real tiger. It really varied. Sometimes they had a longer time span where, depending on the yearbooks or the athletic programs, they'd span 8 years, maybe 12 years, and just come and go in between that time frame, never really consistently. But when we fast forward to the late 1990s, that's where our panelists all have something great to contribute to this origin story and their expertise about how Victory came to be. And now as Victory Tiger embraces that adulthood age of 25,
cheap car insurance.
We look forward to using the Victory Tiger of today. And he has a nice black beard now. He won't go gray for a long time. So what I'll start with is let's have each of our panelists introduce themselves and just briefly state your name and your ties to Victory Tiger.
I guess I'll be down at the end here and I'll start. I'm Larry Dreiling. I graduated in 1980. I have 2 degrees from 1980 in the Bachelor of Science in Political Science and the Bachelor of Arts in Communication, and then a Master of Arts in Communication, graduated in 1985. And yes, I was the Tiger mascot for a couple of years between 1977 and 79.
I'm at Hammond. I was the chief janitor here, swooping up after victory for many years.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. That's good point.
So, my name is Scott Gross. I'm the art director here in the marketing department at Forsyth State University. And I'm the caretaker of the brand, so to speak. I like being part of that. So I graduated in 1990 from Fort Hays, so I kind of come back to where I started. So I'm excited to be here.
So to start off, I have a few questions for the panelists, but then we'll also open it up to any questions that you might have that maybe we can get answers about Victory Tiger today from our panelists as well. So to start off, Ed, since you were the president during the time, can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for creating Victory Tiger, and how did the idea of a new tiger come about? What was that process like?
Well, I came in '87, and when I got here, the university was struggling with its identity, both graphically and in reality. So our university relations crew responded to my desire to try to come up with something that we could put on documents and that represents our institution. And they came up with, they said the most recognizable symbol of the university was the columns. And so on all our letterhead and all of our materials at that time, through the 90s, there was the column that was used as it. There was never any thought to using the tiger because it was constantly changing and morphing. One of the things that is just human nature, I think, is that after a few years, people begin to think, I've got a better idea, and they want to change things. And so if you look at the history of the tiger as you did, I think there were like 15 different versions that I identified at one time. I don't know if that's the right number or not.
It's more than like 27.
Could be.
It was.
I wasn't around when you were here, so I don't know how often it merged.
Oh, boy,
in that
it's
time.
changed a lot.
But the bottom line is that an institution needs to resist that change if you're going to protect your images and your heritage. And so as we got ready to celebrate our centennial, you don't get ready to celebrate a centennial just instantaneously overnight. We started 5 years, really 6 years ahead of the centennial in 2002. I put together a little kitchen cabinet to work with me on that. Bob Lowen kind of chaired that group at the beginning. Jim Forsyth, who had retired from Fort Hays State University at that point, I was able to talk to him into coming back and taking on a major role in this task. And myself, those were the three people that primarily were involved. We would involve faculty senate leadership and student senate leadership as we moved through the process, as well as cabinet and stuff like that. But I went to him and I said, okay, for the next 5 years, let's celebrate something, let's do something that positions the university for having an amazing centennial. And so we looked at what could we do. And so we took on 5 tasks. One was to renovate the quad as best we could to protect its integrity and its tradition, but update it for what we wanted to do for a campus that was totally computerized at that time. We embarked upon a centennial campaign to raise money. We went into the silent phase 4 years ahead of the centennial because we wanted to announce that we had reached our goal during the centennial year. And you don't raise $30 million, or we hadn't raised $30 million for anything at Fort Hays in the history of the school, but that was the goal that we set at that time. And then the other one that we picked, one of the other items that we picked to target, was to get total campus buy-in to a new symbol for the campus. We weren't trying to develop a new mascot. but we wanted to come up with something that would be used academically, athletically, everywhere we could. And so the tiger kind of raised to the front of the table. So we started working on it like in 1996, 97. And Bob Lowen had a really talented young lady working for him by the name of Mary Ridgway. And Mary Ridgway is really the mother of the tiger, and the father's here on my left. And I'll explain that later on. But Mary Ridgway came into my office one day and said, Bob said I need to develop some tigers for you to look at. And I said, oh, 4 or 5, I don't care. Let's have your best shot at some things. And she came in with 4 different tigers that we looked at. And Jim Forsyth commented from a historical perspective, in terms of what it had morphed. And we said, now listen, if we do this, we're not changing. And we're going to stay this tiger for a long time. And it's going to be on our letterhead. It's going to be on our advertising. It's going to be on our billboards. It's going to be everywhere so that we can identify with it. We're going to really invest in it. And, at that time we weren't talking about tigerizing the campus, but that became an issue after it was adopted. Lo and behold, a year later or so, I got a call from Bob. Told me, he says, I think we're ready. So we had a little meeting, and she brought in her drawings, and 2 of the 4 got discounted pretty quickly. And then, and I think, had she talked to you about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And in the process, at least she claimed she had talked to you.
Yes.
And she said that she and you agreed on this particular one tiger.
Yeah.
And it was the one I liked, and it was the one Bob liked. So leaving that meeting, we decided we were going to go with that selection. And it was, the rest is history. But that would have been spring of 1999 that we kind of made the decision. And then, I'll stop there and let someone else talk about it, but I'll come back and pick it up at that point, all the things that had to happen between then and the dedication of the tiger, or the unveiling of the tiger, and how that was all planned at Sternberg and later on. But that's kind of how we got from kind of a potpourri of tigers to a person who was president who said, this is going to be it, and that's going to be it for a while, and I was able to stay around long enough that it's still it. So, and if you just stop and think, there's pressure all the time to change it. Recently, I've seen the old tiger, the last one you had, appearing on shirts and things like that. And that's the beginning of the erosion that occurs within any organization that's trying to protect its heritage or something. Same thing happened with our alma mater. There's been pressure from the music department. We got a better song we can play, or we've got this, that, and sometimes it's just better to stay with what you have and understand the heritage, and that was kind of the belief that we were trying to say. When we made the decision, we wanted a decision that would last for the test of time.
Larry, can you talk about your involvement during that?
Here we go. Look at the 1969 logo here. This is actually a copycat from Kansas State University, except you could turn it into purple and silver. The K is exactly what Kansas State uses, and instead of Fort Hays, it has State on it. He basically stole from Kansas State, and that's one thing that has always kind of bugged me about that thing. And then when we went to FHSU in 1977, they changed it to Fort Hays U, with a U instead of the K, and Fort Hays State on the pennant and the U on the sweater. So, and then it's just sort of transmogrified into all sorts of different things. And as a student at the time, I was like, this isn't the way to sell it. how are we going to be able to market ourselves and grow the university? We're this little small-time university out here in the hinterlands. How is Jerry Maddock going to be able to sell this thing? How are we going to be able to recruit more people? I'm one of the few people from Colorado, but that's because I guess you could say that I'm a heritage kind of person. I'm a third-generation Tiger. And so it was sort of natural that I come out here to go to school. But there are a lot of people that are from big cities that weren't a part of that. And so if we could recruit more people from other places besides Western Kansas, let's take it and let's move forward. And so I've been sort of a pain in the butt to university administrators over the years on this, and Ed would know that, and the athletic director at the time, Tom Spicer, would know it, and a lot of other people knew it. That here I was, a former mascot, and I've been kind of crusading for something unifying and something that we as a university could rally around. And so instead of having all of these different logos, and I think Mary Ridgway counted 27 between the start of that era when the coach, I believe it was Coach Spears, said, let's go out and fight like tigers. So that's why we're the Fighting Tigers, when you really get down.
That's one story.
That's one story, okay. That's one story, okay. But that was Coach Spears' Fight Like Tigers thing. And so in essence, we needed to have something unifying, and I was screaming for this for ages, and I was thrilled that Dr. Hammond and Dr. Forsyth, who was a great history teacher, wrote 2 books on the history of the university, and was just a terrific person to begin with. And Bob Lowen, our wonderful late director of university relations, put in, and voice of the Tigers, and voice of the basketball voice of the Tigers, had put together this group of people, and I guess I was sort of like on the sidelines shouting like a rogue from the gallery, so to speak, and trying to get this to be done and done right. Just because I was a former mascot, I felt ownership toward the thing. And when you wear the suit, you do feel a little bit of ownership, I have to admit. And I was a public relations tool for the university, and I did other things besides just cheer at ball games. And, I wore whatever uniform that was required of me. Yes, you'd see me in a wrestling singlet. Going to track meets and doing whatever needed to be done, and going to special events that the university asked me to do. And I did that while working pretty much a full-time job at KAYS and going to school full-time. And but I loved doing it, and it was something that I felt an obligation toward. Out of dare, I did it to do this job, and I loved doing it, and so keep on giving back.
And when Victory was being developed in the 90s, were you also serving on the alumni board?
I was on the alumni board, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were serving.
So yeah, so I was sort of in a multi-pronged trident after everybody to get stuff done, so.
So you've already mentioned.
The reason why I also call him, besides the fact that he did the innovative and opinion on this issue, that he was happy to voice, was the fact that when we got it all designed, I said, well, we need to have 2 tiger suits made. And I said, there's a company in Cincinnati that made before I came here, I was vice president of student affairs at Louisville, and athletics reported to me, and we would get the Louisville Cardinal made at this firm in Cincinnati that everyone, all the major companies, all the major schools were using for their mascots. And so we sent Mary there and came back, and they said, well, it'll cost this much for one. And I said, how many for 2? It's cheaper if you get them by 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. because you get hot in those things and get sweaty. We ought to send them out to get cleaned every once in a while. And the earlier version didn't have a fan in the top, so there was no venting of it. And then later on, they designed it with a fan in the top to help solve that issue.
It did have a cooling unit, though. You could put ice packs.
Yep, it had pockets.
It had ice pockets, yeah. You could put ice packs in it.
But the fan made a big difference. But so once I got the estimate back, Larry was one of the first persons I called. And I said, you've been complaining about this and you've been pushing on this. This is what we're going to do. I need 2 of these. I said, well, you pay for one and I'll pay for one. So he wrote a check for one, and I wrote the check for the other one, and we ended up getting Cincinnati to make 2 of them and send them back.
He flew all the way down. I was working in Dodge City at the time. He flew all the way from Hayes down to Dodge City. He took the plane down. He says, he called me that morning, and he said, get your check ready, meet me at the airport, get your check ready. And I said, well, let me move some money around because I didn't have all that money in the one check. So I moved the money around and got that taken care of. And so I met him at the airport, and then, he actually bought me lunch that day. That was really nice of him.
Depends on how big the check is.
The check was...
You can get dinner sometimes.
The check was big. Well, for me, at least, it was real big.
No, it was. And it wasn't that there weren't other people who would be willing to write that check. I just thought it was important that I give him the opportunity not to do it first. So...
Well, you bet wrong, fella.
No, I didn't bet at all.
Oh, all right.
I mean, I made you a deal.
Yeah.
You didn't have to pay for the whole thing. You had to pay for
the one, okay, yeah.
So but that's the reason why I say Mary is clearly the mother, and he is clearly the father.
I pay all the bills. That's what dads do. They pay the bills.
Can we fast forward to April 2000 for the unveiling of at the Sternberg Museum, and maybe how that came to be and how he was first received?
We also need to talk about the name.
Well, was that before or after?
That came after.
It actually started before.
Oh, okay, yes.
We had a student body president by the name of Joel Bannister, who was student body president here in 99-2000. And this is just perfect. You can't write stuff better than this. The Bannister family probably is, in the history of the university, one of the most important families in our history. Marcia, the mother, was the founding faculty member for one of the first allied health programs. Started as just a small division within the biology department. When I got here, it wasn't a department or anything like that, and which is our speech pathology program. And she and her husband had 4 boys, and all 4 boys were elected leaders of student government at Fort Hays while they were here. None of them were here at the same time. Well, Mark probably overlapped with his older brother a little bit, but not much. And so as a family, they have tremendous ties. I think most of you know Mark, who went on to, 3 of them are lawyers. One's a judge in Manhattan now, very influential judge and part of our Kansas judiciary. Other one is a very successful lawyer in Dallas. Mark, of course, was here as I hired him as my assistant to the president. He was our first legal counsel that was on campus that I hired, first one we ever had, and then went on to be chair of INT as we wanted to develop that whole information networking telecommunications program. That was his brainchild, and he drove that significantly when he was here. Became dean of the business school, and now he's the dean of the business school at Boise State. So, but I mean, the whole family has had Ted, Joel, Mark, and the judge. Mary was Grant Bannister. So that family had a major role in it. Well, Joel happened to be the president. He came to me, because because I had shared with the student body president what we were going to do, and we were waiting for a time to do it. It had to be done at a basketball game, which is appropriate since the first rollout was at a basketball game. So, I mean, the event may be more important than the date, so I'm glad we're following that tradition. But the bottom line was Joel came and said, let's have the students name Victory. And I said, well, that's fine. We'll we'll do the rollout, and then we'll immediately go and have a vote on campus at the usually late April, 1st of May is when they elect the student body president, so we can have the vote then. But I said, we got to have a campaign to show them what we're doing. And so they brainstormed some ideas, and I think there were 4 names on the ballot, and then they picked Victory, and we can as the name. But so it started before we did the thing in fall, the rollout at the museum at Sternberg, and it was actually selected by a vote of the student body after that.
Okay. Do you remember any of the other potential names?
No.
Well, we like Victory, so that's okay.
Well, and there was a lot of rumors about what, the E stood for Ed, or the E was this, or what, and the gray, the reason why there was gray on the original picture was because my gray hair and all that. I mean, the students had all these backgrounds. None of them were true that I know of. You'd have to ask Mary if they'd ever.
Mary told me the gray was a shadow, basically.
Yeah.
That was really what all it was.
But we removed the gray. Is the only change to the original drawing that I know that's been made.
Scott, do you want to chime in on that removing the gray and maybe just some of your mascot research that you've done when you started too?
The gray beard. So when I came here 3 years ago, I saw, like on the trash cans and on sides of buildings that it would just fade away. It's like, we can't have that. And some of the trash cans were turning purple, kind of lavender. So I figured making it black would kind of even it out if it does fade. So just better in printing. But yes, I did extensive research on when I first came here to the kind of a deep dive. And I did a little research on the K, on the one tiger, and it actually stands for K Club.
K Club.
Yeah. And so like the Letterman would get a K on their jerseys back in the day, and so that was the group that supported all athletics.
Yeah, and matter of fact, we've not had any kind of real Letterman type of jacket. They get a coat or something like that might have their sport on it. But
so now it's kind of more of a time where
it's more of amorphous kind of a thing. And you are counted as a Letterman. I mean, I'm counted as a Letterman in cheer. But
sure.
That was one of the designs they had the K on it.
Yeah.
But it reminded me too much of Kansas State, and so we did not.
No.
So those marks have somewhat become kind of preserved. They're vintage, so we like to protect them. So that's why when you see somebody changing it, it's just like, no, we can't change it. It's original, so let's protect that. It's nice. And just going through the Kansas room and finding all different types of programs and what people have used, and it's also wonderfully preserved there. And I think I came about 14 different versions of the tiger that we had, and I'm sure there's a lot more.
Oh, boy.
I'm glad that we finally got some leadership from Ed.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So how was Victory used in the beginning? So he was revealed in 2000. What was the process of tigerizing campus, and when did you start seeing almost everyone start having Victory on their shirt or on their...
Well, since we had a year basically to do it, we stopped all the printing of stationery. We stopped all of the big cost production stuff that we wanted to impact the tiger with. And then by the following fall, we were rolling out all the new stuff. But it created some problems with the print shop because they were wanting to get things done. We weren't wanting to do it until it was rolled out. We didn't have a name for it, and didn't have a name then. But we had already decided, and Mary and Bob in University Relations had already designed the new stationery, and so we developed a, what do you call it in your business, but a kind of a design requirement that had to go into effect. And,
Sure, the brand standards.
Yep, brand standards were developed and circulated to departments, and there was lots of pushback from people. Well, we've always used this, and we said, that's fine, but that's not what we're doing any longer. And then over time, they said, if we use the tiger, can we then put a tagline in? And so there were some adjustments, but the tiger then, starting the fall of that fall after the rollout, we began having it in that. And then really Joey Lynn at the time, and when he was director of admissions, was the one that was driving the tigerizing of the campus. And we've done everything from engraving it on concrete, sidewalks, to flags, to downtown. Bob Lowen went down and got the city to agree to, well, Midwest Energy's trucks went around and put the flags up for us, and, you know, so it was widely used.
You can go into the Dodge City train.
But we'd take the pennant and we would give it out. So, I mean, there are a number of establishments in Kansas City that have the flag and the pennant. I've seen the pennant also in San Diego, in the very facility that Top Gun famous piano routine was shot, which is still there. It's called Kansas City Barbecue, interestingly. It's right downtown, but it has the Fort Hays Tiger there. I think it has now got its second generation of and it has lots of Kansas license plates all over the wall and stuff like that, but it has the Fort Hays Tiger banner there. So I've run into it all over the place. And just one last story, maybe, you know, the decision when we made the decision on the Tiger, we had no idea what the impact would be. You know, the Tiger was, the decision was made, you know, 99 to 2000. And at that time, we also know we're negotiating our China arrangement. And the decision to adopt the Tiger had a tremendous impact on our success in China. And we had I'd like to say it's leadership, and we understood all this, it was planned. It was totally by accident. But if you look at, first of all, the normal run-of-the-mill Chinese citizen loves Americans, and especially the older ones in the rural parts of the country. Maybe not in Beijing all the time, but you get out in the hinterlands and they find you're American, they'll come up and thank you. And what are they thanking us for? Well, the Chinese people give the United States the credit for running those horrible Japanese out of the country in World War II, who were raping and pillaging, and they were horrible to the Chinese people. The most visible symbol of American military presence in China in World War II was the Fighting Tigers. And if you look at the tiger on the front of the planes, the fighters that we were using in China, they all had a tiger painted on the front of it, and it's a tiger coming right at you like our tiger is, and it's very similar to our tiger symbol. And because of that, there was this natural attraction to Fort Hays State in our program. And it wasn't part of the decision. We made the decision on Tiger really before we signed the agreement to start offering the China program, but it had a very positive impact. I can't think of a better symbol for the university, mascot for the university, than the tiger right now in China. And there's a saying in China, you know, tiger who is tiger, because the symbol who is the symbol for tiger in China. So it's like who's on first and what's on second. They play the same game in China, only it's about a tiger.
Interesting.
And let's remember one person who is instrumental in a little bit of tiger lore, and that's Jack Heather, who founded our radio television program. And he was a fighting tiger. He was one of the flying tigers. And served in the with the men who went over the hump and took care of business over there. And it was in the radio, TV, film department where I was dared to be the Tiger. It's a weird story, but I was doing the evening news on KFHS radio. I was in my freshman year, yeah. And one of the person working across the other end of the booth from me said, I was giving the announcement, the people are trying out for Tiger, if you want to call the athletic department. And the announcer over on the other side of the booth, a young lady from Ellis by the name of Chris Disney, said, you want to try out for the Tiger? So that's how I wound up becoming the Tiger, is that I was dared into it. So if you want to blame anybody, blame Chris Disney.
So I have one more question before I open it up to audience questions of everyone kind of has a unique connection to Victory. So what does Victory represent to you? When you see that emblem and you see it representing Fort Hays State University, what characteristics and what energy does it bring to as a symbol of our institution?
I guess you're asking me first. First of all, he is a forever young person. He may be 25, but he is forever young. And he is a person who represents the youth and vitality and the promise of what Western Kansas and of what this world can be, because we are, as Dr. Hammond has always said, that we're a forward-thinking and world-ready university, and that we get ready for people to come and go out and conquer great heights. And I honestly can say, as someone who has interviewed a couple of presidents, an English princess, prime ministers from all over the world, and then come back home, you know, it's amazing what a Fort Hays State education can do. And I'm forever grateful for it. And I love this little place. And that's why I continue to contribute and do what I can to help it along. And Victory represents everything good about this place. It represents the spirit of tenacity, of stick-to-itiveness, and just of being forever young. And as long as he's here, we'll be a forever young university.
Yeah, sure. I kind of look at Victor as being somebody who takes care of its own and other people, kind of like the king of the jungle kind of feel, but just like he's always looking out for everybody here at Fort Hays.
Ed?
Well, I thought it was the perfect mascot, and as much as some people think that, you know, it was selected for various different reasons, there's lots of folklore about how it was selected in the beginning, back in the early 1900s. But I never could find one story that was documented for sure. But the black and gold, we know where that came from. We started as the western branch of the Kansas State Normal School, and that was Emporia's colors. And but the black and gold and tiger just makes good sense. And so I think it represents everything Fort Hays has stood for since it began in 1902. And you know, Pittsburgh's colors were black and gold when they started as the eastern branch of the Kansas State Normal School. They changed them to gold and red later on. We never did try to change our colors because of Emporia. We just improved on them. And I think our black and gold is much better than the dirty gold that they've decided to use.
Yeah.
And that comes from someone who has it 2 degrees from Emporia. I think we've invested a lot in it, and it really represents our institution. It stands for excellence. In one word, Tiger is excellence.
some of that speaks to the brand guide too. Do you want to talk at all, Scott, about just kind of the colors, the personality of the Fort Hays brand, and moving forward with?
Sure. We've always, we'll always stick with black and gold. We introduced some secondary colors into the brand system, which kind of enhance the black and gold, as long as they're used well. And each color is defined, and each color has to do with something with Fort Hays or Hays as a community. Like for the color, like for example, Frontier is our parks that we have, Bison, the buffalo, kind of a deep maroon color. Seaway, once was an ocean here, and we have lots of fountains here on campus, so it's kind of a teal color. So yeah, that was one of the latest additions to the brand standards. But yeah, it's always changing, always. So.
And controlling that and the licensing is a full-time job.
It is. It's a
or
full-time
more.
job.
Oh, by the way, I still think I still have the registration on the M&Ms market on tiger printed M&Ms. I think I still have that. I'm not sure. But I think I still have that license. And you have to license. If you want to get something tiger printed, you have to have it licensed, and you have to pay your license fee.
Does the audience have any questions you'd like to ask of our panelists?
I actually have two questions.
Here.
The first question is, did you ever think that Victory would take on the personality that he has? 'Cause to me, he has a lot of personality. And then the second question is, and you don't have to tell us, but how much did the suits cost?
The second answer was, I think, $12,000 for two. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
We're paying a lot more for them now, and that didn't have the fans and in them that they do now. Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why we selected Mary's drawing. That particular drawing had personality. It jumps off the page. It presents itself in a dignified way, so it can be used in academic publications. It can be used in athletic publications. It can be judged to be fierce, or it can be judged to be friendly. It has that ecumenical approach to the design that just is very strong.
Well, plus his name is kind of whimsical in a way, where it gives him a little personality as well.
Yeah, and I give the students the credit for that. Joel led that effort, and the students voted on it, and it wasn't close. It was not close. What does the E stand for? It was never defined.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay.
Larry, I was wondering if you were the first person to wear a mascot suit when you became the mascot, or had they had previous ones?
No, there have been other people that had worn mascot type stuff. People had built stuff. I had one built. I had a tiger head built for me, so it was built out of an old football helmet, and then they stuck a bunch of clay on top of it.
And I actually found a photograph in the 1954 yearbook that has a tiger head and a leopard suit.
Yeah.
Larry wearing that one.
I didn't know. I wore whatever the uniform of the game was, whether it was a football uniform, basketball uniform. I wore a basketball warm-up. I wore a wrestling singlet, but I wore it with with pants. I was actually in the best shape of my life when I was the mascot. I weighed a very svelte 153 pounds.
It's a good way to lose weight.
Yeah.
Mascot.
Yeah, damn right it was. We had a great wrestling coach here at the time, a guy by the name of Barry Allen, and Coach Allen was also our strength and conditioning coach. And he really got me into top physical shape for a guy who was kind of a chub. But, I could see my ribs again when I was in the mascot suit. I was a pretty healthy guy back then. I have to admit it. I was in the best shape of my life. And I owe it a lot to Coach Allen, and I worked out with the wrestlers twice a week. And And I had, a lot of the athletes took a shine to me, and that the guys of that era, I get invited to a lot of events with them, basketball and football especially, from that era. And they're good friends, and I'm really proud of the fact that we made those friendships back in that era, and that I'm treated just like any other athlete, at least to them I am. And it's kind of neat. So.
Just a comment here. I was actually a student here during that school year when that happened, and I remember the excitement that was going on with the talk about the new Tiger. I was also a member of the cheer squad. So that year, 98, 99, or 99, 2000, I was actually one of the captains. So at the April unveiling, I was one of the first that saw the actual mascot suit back behind as we brought it out onto the stage and did all that fun stuff.
So, yeah, we pulled it up, and then we dropped it down.
Yep, I was there for that on there, so it was one of those cool, neat moments that I'll never forget. It's a beautiful April day, from what I remember.
Yes, it was.
We did that, and also I was able to wear the Victory mascot uniform that June when our baseball team had come back from being national runner-ups, and we did it over in Sheridan. We had the kind of the pep rally to welcome them back. So I was actually in the Tiger on that day. So, but
I got to wear it once. I don't know how, but I got to wear it. Well, they let me wear it once at an event, and
You paid for it.
well, yeah, but still, it was a fun thing, and I've worn it once, and it was great to do, and I'm real pleased with what has happened over the course of 25 years to be a part of the university, and to just like you, it's a cool thing, and yeah.
Just wondering who was eligible to be Victory back then, and what were some of the benefits, and what is all those things today?
Well, I had to be just like any other athlete. I had to be eligible. They checked my eligibility.
2.0.
2.0. They checked my eligibility. They did all the things that any other student athlete on campus had to go through.
Full-time.
So was there like a
student.
tryout?
Yeah, I did a tryout. The athletic director at the time was the former baseball coach. He had just left as the baseball coach at K-State, a guy by the name of Phil Wilson. And he had his own ideas about being the mascot. He wanted to steal a lot of stuff from Fan Guy at the Mets games. He was a big New York Mets fan, and he was he liked the sign guy. And I said our stadiums and our arenas really are too small to be into that kind of position. You need to make it a little more personal. And so I'd hop into the stands and be with the kids and do a lot of different things, and work with the cheer squad and the Tiger Debs and that kind of stuff. And I stole from a lot of people, I'll admit to that. There was one fellow who was the mascot for the New York Nets and later became the mascot for the Philadelphia 76ers. He moved when Dr. Julius Erving moved from the Nets to Philly back in the mid-70s, back about the same time when I was going to school here. And he had this big floppy hat, and he wore a white suit, but he had these magic gloves, and he'd go over to the opponent's bench and he'd zap the opponents, and he'd put a curse on them. So I did that. I had these really cool gloves that I found somewhere. I think they were downstairs, that they had these very nice yellow gold gloves, and it had paw power on them. And I went, wow, I'm going to take these and make these part of the uni. And I still have them. I should have brought them, but I still have them in my closet at home. And I'd zap the opponents with them. And I remember seeing Gary Carrier, who was the point guard for Washburn. He'd look at me and he'd go, "What the hell are you doing?" So I can remember when we had Washburn was our very fierce rival back in those days. It's not as much as it should be anymore, but Washburn was our rival, and Joe Rosato and his guys would really get fired up against the Bods, and we'd fill the house back then for that, and it was always a fun rivalry, and to go up against some very talented guys over in Washburn, and to see those guys get rattled was fun.
And today it is similar of, the mascot is organized and hosted with the cheerleaders, so they schedule
It's
the mascot.
officially part of our
Cheer.
our cheer squads, and so at the same time that the cheerleaders have tryouts, people interested in being a mascot have their tryout.
Yeah.
And so it's, and there isn't any pay for it that I know of, but there could be now. I don't know if there is or not, some scholarship money tied to it or not. It's been kicked around, but it's now way above my pay grade to know that, so.
I tried to give a little money for a book award. You know, and that's generally what I try to do, and is try to make that kind of a thing. But I don't know whatever happens to it.
You really need to have more than one, because with it being the symbol of the university, I mean, there are literally hundreds of opportunities to use the tiger, whether it be, we get invitations from the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Russell, Kansas would like to have the tiger in the parade, or we get this, that, or the other thing. I mean, there's just, it's humanly impossible for one person to do it. So I think right now there may be two individuals that are splitting up the duties, and it's extremely hot. Now that the Coliseum's going to be air conditioned, it may be a little nicer, but when it was hot in the Coliseum, it was much hotter. And the only reason I know is that one game, cheerleading squad came to me and they said, "Will you be the tiger?" So I got dressed up in the tiger and I practiced with them so I could stunt. So they had me up on top of a pyramid, and now it wasn't triple high pyramid, but it was up, and those damn feet are so big. It's,
Yeah.
you know, and my feet aren't that big, and so your foot moves around in there, and then you're hot. And so I experienced being a tiger for one game, and then, or for half a game, because at halftime they guessed who the tiger was, and the crowd didn't know what to do because we never say who the tiger is. I mean, part of being a mascot is that you don't ever speak and you don't ever tell people that that's what you do. You dress in a room you disappear into, and you come out as a tiger, go back and change, and that's just part of the mascot tradition. But that game I was the tiger, and then I took my head off and the place went crazy that I hadn't fallen and broken my neck, I guess, was it. But
Well,
it's a challenge.
Yeah, I always changed over in one of the locker rooms in Cunningham and walked all the way back, because that way it was the easiest way to never get noticed.
Scott, can you talk how licensing has changed? I know you've been here for 3 years, but even however far back that kind of goes, and then what the process of vetting those licenses look like.
So our, I guess, licensing partner is Infinity Gateway, and you have to be licensed to use the brand. And so say some vendor here in town uses it, and so they submit their design to this website. I get to view it and get to approve it or disapprove of it, and make comments on how they can improve it. So it's not like you're rejected, you're out. It's like a learning experience, so they don't do it again and learn from it. And so it's a real easy process. I don't know exactly how much it all is, all that works, but yeah, it works really smoothly.
I wanted to answer your question. One thing I know about this current, if a student wanted to be Victory Tiger, they don't get a pay, but what they do is they get a stipend on their housing. So here's the thing. A student who wants to be Victory Tiger has to live on campus. And as I understand, we've had many talented students who have tried out, but they live off campus. And so that stipend doesn't work. So that's kind of been something that has been batted around that I would like to see changed, because I think we have some talented students that could do it. Scott, what bugs you? I mean, I'm pretty sure that people kind of, not in general, take the logo and then they put a little tagline, like you said, or they alter it, and I'm sure it makes your skin crawl.
Yeah.
But remind us out here in the audience, how we maintain the copyright and how we, work with you and don't tweak it too much.
Right. Well, all of our, logos or all of our logo assets are all available on our website, where you can download it and use it and apply it to your design. But it's one of those things where, it's so much common sense. It's like, still today I see things that come through that have our Victor E with a cheetah back print, or it's like, or a leopard print. It's like, they're two different animals. Maybe the tiger stripes, but, it's just a learning process, but it's just one of those things where you just gotta, and sometimes when things come through, it's like the design doesn't look wonderful, but you just kind of have to just kind of go along with it and just give them improvements and you work it out. But did I answer your question exactly? But,
Have you seen any crazy alterations of Victory
Oh, yeah.
where people try to
Sure,
either
they
don't go through your approvals and you just see it around and like, no, he doesn't have a green beard.
right. The Catholic diocese, they change it to, the flag and then hold the rosary, which is all nice. But back then, there was no control. There was no kind of brand standards. That's why they had it. So, but now there is.
I saw an image of Victory, but his colors were a local fraternity's colors.
Oh, see,
And,
yeah. And something like that works. I've seen it once. It's been pink, and it's okay because it's for breast awareness. And as long as there's a story or there's a reason, there's always, always been the rules a little bit for it to work for them. But I've seen all kinds of
We've seen Victory with a Santa hat or something like that at Christmas time. That's perfectly cool.
Well, that's perfectly cool if like Victor, the actual mascot, is wearing it and he's out there, being in the season. But when you alter the actual logo, you can't put a Santa hat on it because it kind of defaces the whole. Yeah. Because we have to preserve him.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here on this bitterly cold day. There are refreshments outside. Feel free to take a plate, take something to go, stick around and mingle if you want. But thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you at the birthday game on Saturday.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck trying to manage all these.